Chelsea admitted 74 separate breaches of FA rules, undisclosed payments, unregistered agents, hidden third-party deals across 3 governing bodies. The original punishment, a suspended 6-point deduction, and fines totaling over £29 million from the FA, the Premier League, and UEFA, but the only sanction that would have changed the league table was removed on appeal. And the reason it was removed is the most important part of this story. The Football Association's case against Chelsea rests on 74 admitted breaches of FA Rule E1.2. This is not a matter of a single administrative oversight, an isolated filing error, or misplaced paperwork. 74 separate infractions represent a repeated pattern of behavior spanning multiple seasons. To understand the seriousness of these charges, we must look at what Rule E1.2 actually does in plain English. At its core, this regulation governs who can participate in player-related transactions. The FA designed these rules to ensure transparency, controlling the involvement of agents, intermediaries, and hidden outside interests in players. Under these strict requirements, every representative must be registered with the FA, and every payment made during a transfer or contract negotiation must be fully disclosed. When a club bypasses these channels, they bypass the entire governing system. By admitting to 74 separate violations, Chelsea acknowledged a practice far larger than one unauthorized signing or one isolated transfer window. This was an ongoing mechanism that directly challenged the FA's ability to police the financial integrity of English football. The sheer scale of these admissions transformed a standard compliance issue into one of the largest regulatory cases in the history of the sport, prompting a fundamental debate over how governing bodies should enforce their rules. The Regulatory Commission initially issued Chelsea a suspended 6-point deduction alongside a £10 million fine. In sports governance, a suspended penalty acts as a conditional threat. It does not alter the current league table, nor does it immediately strip the club of points. Instead, the deduction remains inactive, serving as a warning that only triggers if the club commits further infractions within a designated timeframe. Chelsea challenged this ruling, taking the case to an independent appeal board. On July 31, 2026, this panel changed the entire mechanism of the punishment. The board removed the suspended 6-point deduction completely. In its place, they imposed a suspended registration ban covering 2 complete transfer windows, scheduled to run until June 30th, 2027. The panel determined that because the current club leadership had cooperative intent and did not gain an active sporting advantage on the pitch, a direct table penalty was excessive. Under these terms, the transfer restriction remains dormant. Chelsea is free to sign and register new players in the upcoming windows. However, the Football Association holds the authority to apply to activate this ban if the club commits any similar rules violations before the June 2027 deadline. By replacing a points threat with a transfer restriction, the appeal board fundamentally altered the impact of the disciplinary action. The decision removed any immediate threat to Chelsea's position on the pitch, translating a sporting penalty that could have redefined their league standing into a conditional future administrative barrier. The origins of these 74 breaches trace back to a specific, highly successful era in Chelsea's history. Between 2011 and 2018, under the ownership of Roman Abramovich, the club secured multiple domestic and European trophies. Behind these triumphs lay a complex financial architecture. During this 7-year window, Chelsea operated a system of undisclosed payments that bypassed normal regulatory channels, funneling an estimated £47 million through offshore networks. This was not a series of isolated accounting errors. It was a structured, multi-season practice. A shadow payroll of money moved through offshore entities linked to Abramovich, including Camberley International Investments and Fordstam Limited, the Jersey-registered holding company that owned the club. These corporate vehicles routed interest-free loans to fund transactions that were never recorded in the club's official filings to the Football Association. The payment flows targeted 3 distinct groups: players, unregistered agents, and individuals connected to other clubs. Under the Football Association rules, every intermediary must be registered, and every financial transaction must be declared. Instead, Chelsea used these shadow channels to pay unregistered agents for securing key player agreements. Major signings during this era, including Willian, Samuel Eto'o, and Eden Hazard, were linked to these undisclosed arrangements. The contracts involved arrangements where outside entities retained indirect financial interests in the players' future transfer values, bypassing the Football Association's outright ban on third-party economic ownership. In one instance, £23 million was paid to 7 unregistered agents across 7 different player transactions. Another £19.3 million was routed to offshore entities tied to the transfers of Willian and Eto'o. By operating this shadow payroll, the club maintained undisclosed influence over player recruitment and contract negotiations. This established a multi-season legacy system of hidden transactions that stayed off the official regulatory books for years, showing why this long-term pattern matters historically as well as legally. In May 2022, the Todd Bailey and Clearlake Capital Consortium, operating as Blueco, finalized the purchase of Chelsea. During the standard due diligence process, the incoming owners uncovered the discrepancies in the club's historical accounts. This was not a dramatic confession, but a routine step to manage corporate liability. To protect their investment from inherited regulatory penalties, the new regime voluntarily submitted the files to the Football Association, the Premier League, and UEFA. By formalizing this disclosure, the buyers sought to insulate themselves from the consequences of decisions they did not make. This transition of power created the specific conditions necessary for regulatory scrutiny. For years, the offshore transactions had remained completely invisible to football's governing bodies. The discovery was not triggered by an external audit, but by the commercial audit required to close a multi-billion-pound transaction. This reality exposes a significant vulnerability in football governance. When club ownership remains stable and unchallenged, internal ledgers stay closed, and compliance breaches can remain buried indefinitely. The Chelsea case shows that it often takes the legal friction of a sale to bring hidden practices into the open, raising a broader question for the entire sport. How many other historic arrangements remain hidden across leagues simply because those clubs have never changed hands? The full financial resolution of these historical breaches spans 3 separate regulatory bodies, each applying its own rules to the same set of facts. The total financial bill for Chelsea is substantial, totaling £29.35 million. In July 2023, UEFA concluded its investigation with an £8.6 million settlement for incomplete financial reporting. In March 2026, the Premier League imposed a £10.75 million fine alongside its own suspended transfer bans. The Football Association completed the ledger with its £10 million fine. Yet, despite the scale of these combined fines, the sporting impact remains entirely unwritten. No league points were ever lost. Instead, the club exchanged a multi-million-pound liability for total competitive preservation. This outcome reveals a central dilemma in modern sports governance. In a multi-billion-pound industry, a £29 million penalty is an operational expense rather than an on-pitch catastrophe. For clubs with significant capital, financial payments can be absorbed, whereas a direct points deduction immediately threatens league position, European qualification, and broadcast revenues. By resolving 74 serious regulatory breaches without any active sporting penalty, the case raises a structural question for football authorities. If the cost of breaking the rules is merely financial, and that cost is ultimately affordable, what behavior has actually been deterred? Subscribe to stay updated on the legal and financial decisions shaping modern football. If regulatory compliance can be managed through suspended bans and affordable settlements, the sporting table remains untouched. This shifts football's enforcement from a true competitive deterrent into a mere cost of doing business. Subscribe for more forensic football governance analysis.